Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you all today, and I am so excited to have MereAnn Reid here today, who is a child and play therapist. And she really wants to help all of us understand and support our children. She started her practice 12 years ago, seeing kids and families, particularly related to child development, parenthood, and adoption. She works with attachment, grief, and trauma in mind, incorporating play therapy, brain science, and practical tools into parenting and family therapy. She always focuses on that connection first, building regulation and socio emotional skills so you can tap into your strengths that you already have and boost your family's resilience. MereAnn, it's so wonderful to have you here today. Your work is so complementary to the work that we do here in the Happy Home community. MereAnn, you currently her program for child and play therapy is currently full. So it's such an honor to have you with us today and to be sharing your expertise. So welcome everyone, and I'm gonna hand it over to you, MereAnn. And I'm here if you need anything.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you for hosting me. It's exciting for me to be with you all too. Like you said, my practice is full at the moment, but that doesn't have me slowing down in terms of sharing this information, because I really believe that empowering parents is the very best path to helping more kids. So there's only so many therapists to go around, but each of your kids has you. So that's what has me excited about our conversation today. So I'm going to just pull up a short little slideshow and share with you some of my favorite kind of both ideas, but also just a primer on what attachment is and how it works, because there is a lot out there about attachment, that is a lot to digest. So we're going to talk about the attachment umbrella. And this is a metaphor that I've been playing with over the last several months and in some of my parent groups. And I just want to talk about it with you all and then field your questions afterwards. So what is attachment? Attachment is first and foremost a survival imperative. It ensures that we keep caregivers close. It ensures protection. Reliance is actually one of the things attachment teaches us, that it's safe to rely on someone else to help us get our needs met and make sure that we have sufficient care. Attachment includes also all the physiological responses to stress that surge through our body. We're going to talk more about that, because what I really want to hit home is that attachment is not just relational, it's also regulation. So we'll come back to that idea. Attachment helps us focus on getting our needs met at all costs. That's why sometimes it looks like really big behaviors, because big behavior is a small price to pay if that helps a kid keep their caregiver close and make sure that they get their needs met. So the neurobiology of attachment changes our brains, is the next important piece. It sets or resets our stress response system and shapes how we see the world around us, how we see ourselves. Y'all are hearing this, right? Attachment is the foundation. And I know that you're talking about this in your group with Megan. I know you're talking about the importance of playfulness, but I want to help you make the connection between attachment, playfulness, and regulation. Because the way that we interact with our kids, the way that they interact with us, maps all their future relationships. And our attachment patterns are both created in relationships and most effectively changed in relationships. So coming back to that idea that as a therapist, I can certainly have an impact in shifting attachment for your child and in your family, but I can't do that on my own. We need the relationship between you and your child will be the primary place where things shift for you, for them. So this is the short list. What is attachment? It's all these things. It's a regulation pattern, a survival strategy. It's a wise adaptation, right? If it results in survival, it's a win. Even if it's not the most secure attachment, even if there is some trauma embedded in old history that informed the attachments, if survival is happening, then there's some wisdom in the behavior. Attachment is experientially developed. It's generationally modeled, right? It gets passed down. The trauma threads get passed down and the connection threads get passed down. Both of those matter. And attachment can be different with each caregiver, right? If your child is being co-parented, you can expect, and it is pro-social, for them to have different strategies for getting different needs met with each parent. And attachment is relationally responsive, shaped in relationship. But the media sometimes tells us different things. What attachment is not, right? Don't be thrown off by some of these ways that the popular press talks about attachment. Attachment is not just a habit. It's much more primal than that. Attachment is not a personality type or a character trait. The idea that attachment is sort of our compass by which we navigate the world is a much more important distinction. Attachment is not developed or changed independently. We're back to that idea, right? That we can't send a child into play therapy and expect that alone to change their attachment strategies or style. It happens in relationship and it gets practiced in relationship. Attachment is not reciprocal in parenthood. You have a bond with your child, but you're responsible for meeting their needs. They're not responsible for meeting yours. That distinction alone means it's not reciprocal. And attachment is not static or stuck. It's changeable. And it's also not exclusive to our family of origin. As we age and get into future relationships, those are attachment relationships too, with good friends, with partners. So there's two pieces that I hope you'll take away from our conversation today, and that is that there are two elements of attachment that sort of everything else can be sort of synthesized into. And our attachment patterns might be a series of hidden clues, things that we do that we don't even realize. It might be some subconscious patterns, or our attachment styles could be a flashing neon sign, right? Really clear pattern in our lives and relationships. But either way, the elements of attachment point us in familiar directions. We have a mode we get into that we learned as kids when we were being parented that we carry forward into parenthood. Those two pieces are our map for regulating ourselves, our emotions, our bodies, and our template for future relationships. Our kids have regulation and relationship templates from us. And those are portable and predictable. That's why they become sort of established, is because our attachment styles are regulation maps back to ourselves. They affect how we see ourselves. And when we internalize co-regulation, which we're going to talk more about, those patterns of the attachment dance with our caregiver becomes the template for how we perceive challenge in the world, how we build our coping skills, how expectations are set, and how we shape our esteem. So regulation and relationship templates are really what we get from the attachment relationship. All of that said, calm is not the point. That's the big myth that I want to bust, is that being connected to self during any and every experience is the point. Can children learn to be with themselves when they're anxious, scared, happy, angry, sad? That's the point. That's emotional intelligence. That's what they can carry forward from the attachment relationship. If we try to stay calm at all costs, then the risk is that we're not being authentic. We're not being clear about the fact that we have really big feelings too, that we get overwhelmed too. And we're not in a position to model for our kids how to handle those big emotions. If they only see us calm, riding right through the middle at all times, that's not going to give them the template that they need. That's not enough range. But our own emotional intelligence and our own regulation and coping skills is part of what they need to see. They need to see it in action. So I've developed this idea of the attachment umbrella, and I'm still experimenting with it. So I'm really going to welcome your questions and your considerations as we keep going. But as I see it, under that attachment umbrella is regulation, felt safety, connection, and repetition. Those are the 4 elements. And that maps out like this. Regulation. Even when we know all the right skills, our top brains, or our neocortex, right, our executive function brain, isn't accessible when we're dysregulated in the lower brain, in the brain stem, in our bodies. We sort of get sealed off from our good decision making and critical thinking in times of real overwhelm. So tools alone won't do it. That's why we also need felt safety as part of attachment, because under the umbrella of safety, we have the flexibility and protection we need to be vulnerable, excited, to rest and digest. But safety is subjective. So one person can't guarantee safety for another. It has to be a felt sense. And connection. The attachment relationship builds a child's capacity to organize emotions. Behind every unworkable behavior is a sense of disconnection. And if we tie that to regulation, often we can see in kids' bodies before a big behavior, before something strong language comes out of their mouth, we can already tell that the disconnection is present. And I want you to be thinking while I'm talking about what those early signals are in your child, even before their behavior goes off track. How do you know the connection has been lost for the moment? Because repetition of losing the connection and getting it back is really the foundation of the attachment cycle. Patterns get established and change with thousands of repetitions. Rupture and repair is key to attachment. When stress hormones are followed by soothing and connection chemicals, we learn that stress is tolerable, not dangerous. And here's where we're headed. We're headed down the river of well-being. This is an idea from the whole brain child that aiming for the middle lets us find the flow between extremes, right? Sometimes we will respond with more rigidity, more structure, especially if we're dysregulated. And sometimes our kids will show up with a lot more chaos than we feel is manageable. But what we're looking for, whether rigidity is coming and kids are refusing, or chaos is on deck and things feel really wild, attachment is about tuning in to the channel that they're on and meeting them there, and then going with them to more sustainable territory. This is the big slide. This one's beefy, but I don't want you to try to read the whole thing. I want you to just look at the graphic, and I'm going to narrate for you what that picture is. This is the arousal continuum. Maybe you know about this from the work of Bruce Perry. He is a medical doctor and also the founder of the Child Trauma Academy. And he's done loads of research around the autonomic nervous system and the arousal that happens internally as the foundation for attachment. So we're back to the idea of regulation. Our response to sensory data in our environment or in our caregiver's face, right? Their facial expression, the tone of their voice, those all send chemical signals to the brain to say, uh-oh, look alert. Are we connected or not? What's going on? Am I about to get in trouble? Can I go to you for help? 80% of those signals originate in the body and travel to the brain. So this is another vote for watching our kids' nonverbal communication before things get really off track, because there already are going to be clues like them turning away from us, like them, squeezing their fists, things that may not be a problem in and of themselves, but are clues that they're started on the arousal continuum. Same for us, right? If there's an incessant noise in the room next to me and I just can't take it anymore, what are the signals that I'm paying attention to know that I can't take this anymore, that I need to set a limit so that I can continue to be a resource? So if you think about emotions starting as energy in motion, that's how you can observe in behaviors and mood and even gross motor activity that emotions are starting to amp up. And these are the states that I want you to be aware of. Number one is calm. This is where we hope our kids can spend the most amount of time. That's not realistic for them to be there all the time. In fact, if they can be in that calm and connected to us state 30% of the time, 33%, that's a good start to secure attachment. If we can respond to them in a way that is accurate and attuned a third of the time, that's going to help the connection really take root so that we can come back to it even in the next state of alert or alarm. Because in alert, they lose flexibility. When their radar goes up for, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Uh-oh, I didn't meet your expectations. Oh no, we're disconnected. That means that they're going to start watching you for cues about what might happen next. And if you get upset, if you're getting frustrated, if you're getting annoyed, better to name that and work on regulating through that while your kids are still in the alert stage before they're truly alarmed. Because in the alarm stage, when they realize, uh-oh, mom's mad, or, oh no, I'm going to get sent away to my room. If there's a risk of that, that might be what pushes them toward their heart rate speeding up, their breath coming a little faster, their muscles tense. That might be where aggression becomes apparent because they're in the state of alarm. And in that state is not the time to introduce coping skills. They've got to already have them in their back pocket so that you can help them find the connection again. You can help them come back to their breath. But know that they can't focus when they're already alarmed, because they're already on their way to fear. That's where they react to their surroundings, maybe more prone to fight, flight, or freeze. This is where sibling squabbles are happening between the alarm and the fear state. And then when they're really throwing a big meltdown, when they're really slamming doors and going to their room, that's terror. That's not them thinking about their consequences. That's them thinking about, I have to get out of here, or I have to stand my ground, because if I don't know what. I don't know how I'm going to recover. I don't know how this could be okay. And at that point, we're just seeing their reflexes. That doesn't mean the attachment isn't present. It means that they can't access a sense of regulation from us. So we've got to go to them, and we've got to really double down on thinking about, how can I be an anchor in this moment? Because ultimately, even before they can get to calm, they've got to get back to equilibrium. They've got to be able to have the storm pass so that they can start to integrate that safety and comfort are available, that they can be reassured that they haven't lost us. So I know that y'all were curious about the 4 essential threats. That was one of the other topics you voted on. And this is just a peek about these 4 things are surefire triggers for the arousal cycle to kick in, right? The unknown, incongruence, right? When our words and actions don't match, that gets their little radar up. Uh-oh, what should I pay attention to? Your words or your facial expression? Unmet expectations or shoulds. That's also where shame can get a foothold. And that can send kids through the arousal continuum. And finally, if they feel like there's a risk to their body or to their emotional safety, that's really going to turn on the fight or flight behaviors. So I want you to think about, as we keep going, the antidotes to these. That's where we're headed for the last few slides. 6 times per second, we're scanning for signals of safety. Our autonomic nervous system, our amygdala, is really looking for confirmation or reassurance that danger is in the environment. If we can make things predictable, if we can match our words and our body language, if we can have realistic expectations or change what we're looking for as evidence that they're doing their best right now, and we can assure their physical well-being, we've addressed those essential threats. But remember, 6 times per second, our brains are scanning to make sure we're okay, to make sure we're safe and don't need to ramp it up. So when we humans are overwhelmed, we have to borrow regulation from someone else. We need to borrow it from a caregiver, a partner, a friend, even a peer. Occasionally, we end up borrowing regulation from our kids. Sometimes they're the ones in the interaction who are more regulated, and that happens from time to time. But the way we learn to do that is by orienting to a primary attachment figure. We absorb how our parents, how our caregivers handle distress and overwhelm. It's not that they never have it, but we need to see it happen and see them survive it. As little kids, right? Your parents now, but when you were being parented is when you were internalizing the coping skills that have created your foundation. That's your lineage of survival, right? Even if you're trying to change those patterns now, they were adaptive at some point because they got you this far. That's really significant, because even if you have 1 foot in how things are and 1 foot in wanting things to change, you are still the lighthouse for your child. And if you think about who is your lighthouse, Who do you look to for modeling now? That's another way to think about it, because attachment does not end when we become adults. It changes shape, right? Because we're in relationships. I love this quote from Anne Lamott. She says, lighthouses don't go running all over an island looking for boats to save. They just stand there shining. To me, that means anchoring, rooting in, grounding yourself is the most productive and profound way for you to be a resource for your child to draw on. You don't need to chase their meltdowns and intensity. But if you can find some sense of steadiness in the midst of overwhelm, that's what will become their anchor. And that's what they will internalize as part of their attachment style. And we're wrapping up on our last couple slides here, back to the relationship, right? We went through regulation, back to relationship. The regulation circuits are mapped inside relationships. We can't separate them. We're not born with the capacity for regulation. Nobody has to teach tiny babies how to cry, how to squirm, how to turn away when something is too much. Those are all really productive uses of dysregulation. But we do need to learn how to organize that overwhelm. The primary building blocks for organizing our emotions, for regulating ourselves, are presence. Your child is asking, can I feel you here with me? Are you really here? Attunement. Are you reading me accurately? Are you getting it? Are you getting what the problem is right now rather than getting distracted by my behavior? That's tapping into attachment. Can I rely on you to accompany me, to stay beside me? And reflection. Do I feel seen and heard by you? That's how regulation and relationship feed each other. And this, I love this fridge sheet from my colleague, Tasha Shore. She specializes in helping parents with aggression that's showing up in your boys. And so she says 5 things to say when your boy is angry or frustrated. I highlighted that every single one of these things is either sensory related, presence, or together related. In just a few words, I hear you. I'm right here, right? Can I feel you with me? Yeah, I'm right here. I'm so sorry it's hard, right? Acknowledging how intense it is. We'll get through this. Not you need to change your behavior. You need to straighten up and fly right. We will get through this. And if you don't know what else to say, the message, you're safe, is a good one. Here's the flow sheet, right? For the more engineer-brained folks among us. If attachment is at the top, if that's the umbrella, regulation and relationship flow from there. Under regulation, we have felt safety, right? Do I get cues from my environment that I'm safe? And if so, can you and I co-regulate together? Can I borrow from you some of the regulation that I can't access right now in myself? And if felt safety and co-regulation can both happen, that is where kids learn impulse control and emotional control. And under relationship, we've got co-regulation. Are you available to them? Are you showing them how to manage the overwhelm? Are you modeling for them? And connection, that felt connection, that repetition, thousands and thousands of times. And if they can access your regulation and feel the connection, staying steady. That's where cooperation and engagement come from. So here we are, full circle, under the umbrella of attachment, regulation, felt safety, right? Cues in the environment, in your voice, in your face that tell them, I've got you. Connection, you're available to them, you're vulnerable with them, and repeating that thousands and thousands of times. That's the attachment cycle in a nutshell. And these are a couple of resources that y'all can follow up on. Tasha Shore, Parenting Boys Peacefully, and Robin Goebel is a wonderful blogger and podcaster about attachment, hands down, my favorite. And then there's my website, MereAnnReid.com. That is the best place to get a hold of me for conversations like this in the future, or for some of the free webinars that I do about once a month on topics like this. So I just really appreciate you all, and I'm happy to come back for questions.
Thank you so much, MereAnn, for being here today and for really sharing your wealth of knowledge and expertise in a really accessible way. Parents can connect with you on your website. And while you are full in this moment in time for child therapy, you are available for parent coaching and you have your free monthly webinars. So thank you so much for being here.